Hey guys, welcome back to On-Prem versus Cloud. This is Christian, and today we are going to talk about AAD token-based authentication in SCCM. So in the last video, we talked about the different authentication methods in SCCM, the authentication methods that an internet device can use to authenticate itself to the on-prem SCCM site when it talks to the on-prem site via the cloud management gateway. So within all those authentication methods we discussed in the previous video, there was a method known as AAD token-based authentication method that we are going to discuss in this video. So when we talk about the AAD token-based authentication, the end goal is to make sure that the device gets a CCM token issued to it, because when a device talks to the cloud management gateway, to the on-prem site via the cloud management gateway, it needs to have a CCM token because it uses CCM token for regular communications with the management point on the on-prem site via the cloud management gateway. The regular communications could be related to policy requests or sending inventories. Uh, it could be requesting policies, sending state messages, or anything uh, that is moving between the client and the management point on the on-prem site. Okay, so let's move to the main part. So you got the idea, right? uh, AED token is basically a pre-authentication token, kind of pre-authentication token that a device can use to pre-authenticate itself to the SCCM site so that a CCM token can be issued to the device, and the device can use that CCM token um, for regular communications with the on-prem site via the cloud management gateway. All right. So how does this work? How the complete process works? So the AAD token based authentication can be divided into two main parts. In the first part, we discuss about how the device gets an AAD token, and in the second part, we discuss how that device uses the AAD token to get a CCM token. Okay, because our end goal is to get a CCM token issued to the device. So CCM token is the end goal, but the first thing is the device should get an AD token, and how the device gets that AD token. So you may have seen that when you onboard, if you have ever tried onboarding an Azure Active Directory tenant to the SCCM on-prem site, when you try to attach the Azure tenant to the SCCM site, there are two app registrations that gets created. So when we onboard the tenant to the site, it asks us to create two applications. If you have done it before, you may know about it. If you have not done it before, not a problem. You can maybe refer to some YouTube videos that are related to creating or setting up a cloud management gateway, and therein you will see how they onboard the tenant to the site. I may help you get a look at a couple of screenshots that may be helpful for you to understand what I'm referring to. So if we talk about this particular screen, so this is the window I'm talking about. So when we onboard the tenant to the site, this is the screen or the wizard that comes up, and it asks you to create two app registrations, one for the web app and one for the client app. Uh, and once you create these apps, these are the app registrations that gets created in Azure. So let's say your tenant name is contoso.onmicrosoft.com, and you are onboarding your AAD tenant. Onboarding your AD tenant, which is contoso.onmicrosoft.com, to the SCCM on-prem site. There are two app registrations associated with this tenant that gets created. One is the config mgr server app, and one is the config mgr client app. So these two apps are associated with the tenant that you are going to onboard, or you have onboarded to the on-prem SCCM site. These two app registrations play an important role, a vital role, so that the devices can request for an AAD token. Okay, so let's say that there is an internet device down here. This is a device. I'm naming this device as machine A. Okay, this is my machine. So we are currently discussing about how the device requests for an AD token. Okay, and what are its conditions, what are the prerequisites and all. So this is my machine A, and it has to request an AAD token from Azure. Okay, and why it needs an AD token? Obviously because it can append that AD token, or it can carry that AD token to the on-prem site via the cloud management gateway, and the on-prem site can validate that AAD token and issue a CCM token to it. All right. So the machine A requires an AAD token, but before it can request for an AAD token, it needs to be capable of requesting an AAD token. Okay, a device cannot randomly request for an AAD token. There are certain conditions and prerequisites for the device to be eligible to request an AAD token. The first prerequisite is the device must be joined to an Azure Active Directory tenant. Okay, so in this case, my machine A needs to be joined to this tenant contoso.onmicrosoft.com. It needs to be joined to this tenant. And once we join this machine A to this tenant, um, there is a WPJ certificate issued to the device. Okay, WPJ stands for Workplace Join Certificate. Workplace Join. Workplace Join Certificate. So as soon as the machine is joined to an AD tenant, a workplace join certificate is issued to it. This certificate is basically a mark, you can say, that denotes that the machine is joined to a tenant. Okay, if my SCCM client wants to request for an AD token, it needs to first validate that whether the machine is joined to an expected Azure Active Directory tenant or not. And this is the certificate that helps to validate that, okay, yes, this machine is joined to the expected tenant. By expected tenant, I mean to say is this tenant is onboarded to the SCCM site. Okay. So this certificate helps us to validate that this device is joined to an expected tenant, because as I said, this certificate is issued to the device as soon as it joins to an Azure Active Directory tenant. So we can easily use this certificate to validate uh, the tenant to which the device is joined to. Second thing is that um, as soon as a user logs into a device, a primary refresh token is issued to the device, which is known as PRT. This is also important uh, for a device for a device that is joined to an Azure Active Directory tenant, and it needs to request for an AAD token. So what does this PRT uh, token do or does? It helps to authenticate the device to Azure, because obviously my device is going to request for an AD token from Azure. It is going to reach out to this object, the client app and the server app on Azure, to request for an AD token, and there needs to be something using which the Azure is going to authenticate this device. There needs to be something that the Azure can use to validate that, okay, the request for this AD token is coming from a trusted device. And there is where the PRT token comes into the picture, and it helps for that validation and authentication to happen. Um, so as we can see that there are two basic prerequisites for a device. Before it can request for an AD token, it needs to have a WPJ certificate, that is Workplace Join Certificate, and it needs to have a PRT token issued to it. When does a PRT token gets issued to a device? As soon as a user logs into a device that is joined to an Azure Active Directory tenant. How do we actually check whether this PRT token is issued to a device or not? So if there is a command that we can run, let me open PowerShell as an admin, and the command is dsregcmd.exe/status. So you can see that the device within the device state section, the Azure AD joined reflects as no, which clearly indicates that the device is not Azure AD joined. And if it is not Azure AD joined, do I expect the device to have uh, a PRT token issued to it? No, obviously no. So if I scroll down a bit, and within the SSO state section, we can see that the Azure AD PRT states as no, which clearly means that the device did not have a PRT issued to it. Okay. If the device do not have a PRT issued to it, obviously it cannot reach out to Azure objects to request for an AAD token. Okay. So this is how we validate. And if the Azure AD reflects as yes, which means the device is joined to an Azure AD tenant, but the Azure AD PRT reflects as no, then it means that there is some issue with the device, or somewhere the PRT could not be issued to the device, and which may need some troubleshooting from Azure perspective. Okay. All right. So the device needs to have these two things before it becomes eligible or capable to request for an AD token from Azure. Now let's say the device has both the things. It is joined to an AAD tenant. It is joined to an expected AD tenant, and thus it has a WPJ certificate, a valid WPJ certificate. It has the PRT token issued to it as well. Now what next? How is this machine going to request for an AAD token? So there is a component on a device on which SCCM client is installed. Okay, the name of that component is CCM and CCM AAD. Earlier, this component was also known as ADAL, Operation Provider, and this used to happen prior to SCCM 2107, I believe. But now this is known as CCM AAD, and the corresponding log file is CCM AAD.log. This log file should be located on the device at the default location where the SCCM client is installed. By default, the client is present in C Windows CCM. So within that CCM folder, you can find a logs folder, and within that logs folder, you'll be able to find this CCM AAD.log. Okay. So CCM AAD is the component that requests for an AAD token. First of all, it requests for a device-based AAD token. It reaches out to the client app, the config mgr client app that is hosted on Azure. The CCM AAD reaches out to the client app, and then this client app forwards the request to the server app, where the validation of the request occurs, and uh, an AAD token is issued to the device. And if a device-based token could not be issued, then CCM AAD request for a user-based token. And if none of them works, if the device-based token as well as or user-based token could not be issued to the device, then you know it fails. Basically, the device cannot get an AAD token, and it cannot reach out to the an SCCM on-prem site to request for a CCM token. Basically, the whole authentication will fail. The whole process will fail. So either the device-based token or a user-based token needs to be issued, requires to be issued to the device. Okay. So CCM AAD is the main component on the device that is responsible to request the AD token, and we can clearly see this activity in CCM AAD.log. Unfortunately, I do not have access to a live SCCM lab environment, so most of my videos would be theoretical and conceptual. Um, I may not be able to show you practically all these things, but I'll try to deliver most of the things theoretically so that it may help you, or you can refer to the video or the concepts within this video uh, to troubleshoot things in your own environment, whether it is lab or production, or maybe just for the learning purpose. Okay. All right. So CCM AAD is finally able to get an AAD token issued to the device. The device now has a valid AAD token. Let me write AAD token here. That simply indicates that the device has the AAD token now. So the device has the AAD token now. Okay. Now what? What next? Now my device finally has the AAD token, and now it can reach out to my SCCM on-prem site. So let this big box represent my SCCM on-prem site. And within the site, let this server be my management point, which I'm writing as MP, and let this box be my CMG connection point or proxy connection point. CMG connection point is also known as a proxy connection point because it acts as a proxy between the cloud management gateway and my management point. All the requests from my cloud management gateway first lands on this connection point, and then this connection point forwards the request to the designated or the targeted servers, whether it is a management point or a software update point or anything. So let this small box in Azure be my CMG, my cloud management gateway. All right. Okay. So my machine is now ready with a valid AAD token. Now the component that will now start acting on my machine would be CCM messaging, and the corresponding log file is CCM messaging.log. So I'm not writing the component and the log file separately, so that I don't want to make things look bulky. So this is a component that is present on my machine only. I'm just writing in a separate box to make things easy. So now my CCM messaging will pick this AD token and it will reach out to this cloud management gateway. All right. And the cloud management gateway will forward that request to the on-prem site on the CMG connection point. So the CMG connection point will receive that request for CCM token, because now the process of CCM token request has started. So the CCM messaging is requesting for a CCM token now by showing to the cloud management gateway that, okay, now I have a valid AD token with me. You can forward this request to the on-prem site. This cloud management gateway will forward the request to the CMG connection point on the on-prem site. And the log file that we need to check on the CMG connection point is SMS underscore cloud underscore, sorry, SMS underscore, yeah, it's cloud underscore proxy connector dot log. All right, SMS cloud proxy connector dot log. This is the log file that we need to check on the CMG connection point. CMG connection point then translates that request, and it identifies that to which management point that request needs to be sent to. Then it forwards that request to one of my management points on the on-prem internal site. All right, and there is a service present on my management point that is CCM underscore STS. STS stands for Security Token Services. So this is the component on the management point which is responsible to receive requests for CCM token and create a CCM token and issue it to the device. All right. So the corresponding log file is obviously CCM underscore STS dot log. That needs to be checked on the management point. So we can check this log file, and we'll be able to see. Maybe you can use the device ID. Every device that is joined to an Azure AD tenant has a device ID associated with it. So maybe you can use that device ID as a filter to filter the CCM STS log, and you can see that a token, a CCM token has been created and issued to it. So this is the workflow. Okay. First of all, the machine a machine request for an AD token. Before it can request for an AD token, it verifies whether it is joined to the expected AD tenant using the WPJ certificate, and it needs to have a PRT token so that Azure can validate that the request is coming from a trusted source. And once these two conditions are met, the CCM AAD component request for the AAD token from the client app, and the client app goes to the server app, and the server app issues an AAD token for the device. Now CCM messaging on the device reaches out to the CMG along with the AAD token and tells it to forward the request to the management point, and so that a CCM token can be issued to it. The CMG forwards the request to the CMG connection point. The CMG connection point further forwards the request to the management point, and the CCM underscore STS component on the management point validates the request and issues a CCM token to the device, which is returned back through the same path to the device via the CMG connection point, and then the gateway, and finally CCM messaging. So I have mostly covered the complete workflow on how the AAD token based authentication works. If you have any questions, feel free to comment and I will respond to your comments as soon as possible and as much as possible. Um, and this was it. So thank you so much for watching, and see you again. Thank you.